to take it off with.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Wow. This is the beginning of another step in the process. And being an H, we start out the process. But I'd like to give a shout out to the other two teams that you will hear from tonight, my esteemed colleagues. Their work is profound, and you guys are going to have a really hard choice. But we'd like to take our 20 minutes and explain our project to you. But first, I'd like to start out with a short video that describes pretty much our process or our inspiration.
From the start, Africans in America dance.
As the old song says, give me the knee bone bent. In Africa, if your knees are bent, you're alive. If your legs are straight, you're dead. They might as well bury you.
One of the first dances slaves create is the ring shout. The ring shout is a spiritual experience. Dancers bless their lives as they move, including their labor, digging potatoes, picking cotton, or rocking the baby. Ralph Ellison, the 20th century writer, called these dances America's first choreography.
For white Americans, this is a new kind of body language that for them is tremendously exciting. To put your elbows out, to plant your feet flat, to be able to move your knees and your hips. It's threatening, it's scary. Some of them tell their children not to do it, but it's starting to become part of the national culture.
For centuries, blacks and whites watch and imitate each other's movements. This continual interplay among the nation's diverse population is producing a rich vernacular dance tradition.
Another term that's loosely used to substitute for the term vernacular is folk. But it doesn't mean exactly the same thing. Vernacular means the dance in its own environment, where it is born, the original dance of those people where you find them. And there's a tremendous amount of exchange between blacks and whites. In fact, they really provide us with the bedrock out of which American dance grows.
It is our honor to be here tonight, truly, for many reasons, but we're a design studio. We're based in Oakland, California, but we have been here, we've worked here. We call ourselves a social art practice. We're landscape architects, urban designers, artists, conservators. And the way that we see our work is we see it in these three dimensions. Life with, everyday, and commemoration. All of our projects carry a component of all those three, some more heavy on one than the other. And this is why this project, when we heard about it, we're like, we gotta be there. It's our passion. We're a group of 20 designers, and tonight, Walter Hood is here, our creative director, Sarita Schreiber, who is our art practice director, and myself, Alma Dusolier, I'm a landscape architect. But in many of our projects, I focus on how do we engage our community and design those processes to make that meaningful and respectful.
This idea of ring and shouting, we want to make witness tree rings with you. And this idea from a disturbed memorial landscape, we want to invite people to gather, have conversations, and imagine a future shaped by peace rather than supremacy. I think one of the things that distinguishes our design from the other two is we don't want to go vertical again. We want to go horizontal. We want to engage landscape. And the tree rings basically will take on the drip line of historic trees throughout Charlottesville. and they will form these places of gathering, and they will gather around a time and a place. The ring shout, as I just showed, is a powerful and enduring cultural tradition. We've worked in the South. I'm from North Carolina. We worked in South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and hopefully in Virginia, and also in Virginia. But we wanted to get something, pick up on a heritage, a practice that we can continue to engage multiple races of people to have a conversation. And conceptually in our brain, before I start showing the projects, we want to gather in places where the trees have gathered. And we want people on a specific date to shout out a memory. We don't care what that memory is. We want the dialectic to be there. And once those memories come together through a process, we want to gather them and then forge a ring. And the ring is basically a metaphor for the tree. We want to work with a dendronologist who will help us go through and understand the different times. A dendronologist will help us know that maybe back in 1870 there was a big snowstorm, but there was also a lynching, that there was also a meal taking place. The tree bears that history. There is a stump, a piece over by our piece here, and it's from the cemetery. We think it's 160 years old. And you can actually find disturbance, but you can also find different places in time through that tree. Come on, clicker. We were first taken by this notion of the tree-bearing witness about 20 years ago in California. This is the new de Young Museum. This is the old de Young Museum. When they toured, the Loma Prieta tore that thing down. People went crazy when Herzog and de Meuron proposed this big thing. But we had 110-year-old palm trees that we pushed the director to save. We took those trees away and we bought them back. When that machine building went up, those old trees allowed San Franciscans to go, there's something that I remember, and people hug those trees. We don't know what we don't know until we lose them, and then when we get them back. Clicker. For my friends, the clicker is a little clicky. This is Charlottesville. When we first started out, I asked the question, you guys have any important trees? And of course you do. I think there was like 25 very important trees that you guys love on your list. They're oak trees, they're pine trees, etc. But we said, what if we started there? But what if we also looked at the larger landscape and if we could find different trees from different times? And what if we jumped over to Monticello? What if we jumped over to Monroe and found those trees that could tell those stories? Could those be the places where we could begin to have these conversations? Go out again, have conversations with all of Charlottesville, not just within a post-colonial or typological park, but within the landscape itself. And from there, in 1955, we might find a locust tree, and we might find someone might say, well, Louis Armstrong performed here in 1955, but maybe 700 children got polio shots. Maybe families of black students in Charlottesville apply to transfer to white schools. But all of these memories might come back as we start to find these places in time. Queen Elizabeth on the Mall, or the pedestrian malls being completed, or the National Convention by an African American, or 4 black students in 1961, or school administrations are limited to a total number of schools to be 36. But let the trees prompt us at different points in time to have different conversations. Or Seal, a googie-eyed mutt adopted by students and staff from the University of Virginia in 1940, he passed away. But at the same time, a new business school for Negroes was started. And what we're trying to say is memory is dialectical. And the reason why we don't have collective memory, why we have ostensible and why we have invented memory is because we don't have conversations with one another about those differences. But what if we did? What if that melted material forced us to have a conversation that could be liquefied and flowed, that didn't form up to become another sentinel, but became something that we could actually disagree with and love each other at the same time? This ingot, we find, produces this point of alchemy. I have to say, you guys have done a lot of work. We're just in the middle of this journey with you guys. You've already created a social process. What you've done already has changed America. It's changed the landscape of America. The object doesn't matter, guys. Imagine those meetings that you guys were in, all of that. That's shaped it. That's a collective memory. When she asks you how many people went to meetings, how many people did this, that's collective. That's power.
Calling and shouting.
That's calling, that's ringing and shouting, right? But these pieces, how can we reimagine them differently? How can they take on another life? And that's what we hope to imagine together. We don't know what they're going to look like. So when you look at our board, we just got these rings. We don't know what they're going to be. That's the possibilities through these conversations that we want to work with you guys on. And it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be just as hard as getting to the point where we are today. But at Hood Design, we love materials. We've worked with materials in different ways. I think our process is about alchemy. You know, we've done memorials, but we love materials to come together. And we love to be, Art Smith is one of our, we love art, mid-century modern jewelry maker. But can you imagine these rings becoming something fantastical, something ephemeral? Something that might bear witness, right, to a moment in time. Something that might allow us to numerate on something very different. Something that might be natural. It might be not something hard, but something soft. Might be something afoot. We know we have the pedestal that we can deal with. We have more inert material. But how do we take, again, the ingot and allow for alchemy to produce the unknown? This horizontal new piece will enwrap the tree. Maybe image might be produced. Maybe text might be produced. We love reflection. Reflection has always been a big part of our culture. At the shadow catcher down at UVA, we love the reflection. When the sun comes out, you get a shadow, and Kitty gets that portal to heaven. But can we be metaphorical only through an allegory, not through an object? And as I said, material allows us to understand light, shadow, and the unknown. And this is one of the things that we think this project will allow us to produce. And when we think of the ring does not have to be something consistent. The ring might find itself pure in one hand, but might leak out and find itself like the root of trees. Someone told me today, my artist friend who's here, she's searching for witness trees in Alabama, and the roots are still there under the ground. And she's able to find the underground roots to know where the tree was actually buried. But that idea that we can begin to investigate the ground plane, the life together. And again, at the end of the day, the journey would continue even more for the next generation. So what we're going to be asking, Ritual as Healer, we're going to have 22 Ring Shout events. It's going to be in 22 neighborhoods. We're going to try to go to 2 plantations. We're going to have 24 witness rings that will take place over 1 year. So it will be a year of ringing and shouting, a year of meeting. And imagine we might have 3 a day. We might have 5 a day. But that would become the process. Again, something that the nation could look down and go, you see those people in Charlottesville? They're actually meeting. They're actually celebrating. And they're actually creating a different future. They're not stuck on a thing.
You can click. So how does this work? What we are proposing is we show you that map that has all of these notable trees as a beginning. Again, this presentation today is what we see is a beginning, it's a framework. The idea is to go and visit different neighborhoods. As you have already done a lot of the outreach, you've already engaged with many neighborhoods. That map of entire city of Charlottesville for us represented that we don't need to be specific. We can try to reach out. And whomever welcomes us to have one of these events, we tap ourselves to one of their trees that they recognize. So it doesn't have to be necessarily from that notable trees list. Because for communities, if I ask you right now, think of a tree that is meaningful to you, a picture comes into your mind immediately. So we want to ask that question and begin to use those trees that have bear witness to our events to come together. And the search is you can keep clicking, is to really find sharing of events that don't necessarily, can be very mundane. Like, do you remember that huge storm that got us all back into our houses? And that put us together one moment. That's an example. The idea is that once we collect all of those stories during the first year, with that information, we generate the ideas for each of the rings to be unique. And again, as Walter was saying, they can take different shapes. It could be words embedded. So we're creating a framework, as you see in our boards, that looks like a shiny object that can be stainless steel as a frame, and all the bronze is embedded, inlaid, wrapped around, depending on what the community, the specific ring wants to see. All the rings get fabricated on year 2, and we raise them into this tower. In the center of this tower, there's the plantation of one tree, the planting of one tree, one white pine. The rings piled up into a tower. But eventually, we start removing them and offering them back to the community that gave us the words and the memories that form the design of each of the rings. With the hope, as you can see on that map on our boards, that you end up with one memory ring in your community around the tree that collected the memory, the shared memories, and it becomes a reminder that we're not going back to take over the space that once not given to all of us, but instead now the whole city shares the memories.
And it might look something like this in a simplified way, a seat. An area. So imagine moving through Charlottesville and seeing these brilliant kind of strange things finding themselves, that the memory that they once towered together collectively, and now they're singular, and they could become a place of respite, a place where people might gather, a place where storytelling might happen, but also it engages the tree. Now someone might ask, well, what if the tree dies? You can move to another tree or plant a tree. Right? Because the tree is life, right? And this notion then of thinking about the future, it's not through the inert material, but it's through something that's alive, something that's brilliant. And we know that this is a highly conceptualized project to be able to do this, but we really feel strongly that coming this far, to actually build something static means it's over. And like with a lot of our clients, they want it to be over. People want it to be over. It's not over. It's kind of a beginning. And that's the renewal aspect of life. And so we'd like to end just with this proverb. And we thought this was very relevant, that the axe forgets, right? That taking down forgets, but the tree remembers. And remember, swords into plowshares. And I'll give my minute and a half over to my colleagues. Thank you guys very much.